Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men have asked me for the right words to say to be more attractive, desirable, and more of a leader. And I've found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines. Because at the root of a connected and affectionate relationship and being more effective and inspiring at work is your ability to influence others. But most often, influence is not gained or lost with words. It's from what I call the invisible factors. So I created a quick guide for you called 3 Ways Men Lose Influence at Work and with Women, so you can understand how these invisible factors work and what has women and colleagues both more inspired to say yes. I think you're also going to be surprised to find out the moment when your influence actually begins. So grab the guide for free at shanajamescoaching.com/3ways. That's shanajamescoaching.com/3 and the word ways, WAYS. Or you can text ALIVE to 44144. That's the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144. I hope you enjoy the guide and this episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I am really excited to be here today. I'm your host, Shana James, and I'm here with Tony Fonderson. Welcome, Tony.
Hi, Shana.
And we are going to be talking about honest sex, which I think is such an amazing topic. So we're going to talk about how honesty can actually create a better sex life for you and some of the issues or pitfalls or problems that happen as we're either attempting to be honest or what happens when we're actually not being honest enough and how intimacy gets cut off. So let me introduce you, Tony, before we dive in, and then we're going to get right into it, to this exciting topic. So Tony Fonderson is a father, a friend, and a valued guide who is naturally talented at leading people to the insights they need to solve deeply personal problems. He grew up in a multicultural environment, and by the time he was 22, he lived in 6 different countries, had 2 engineering degrees, and spoke 4 languages fluently. Tony got a cosmic wake-up call after walking away unharmed from a near-fatal car crash in 1998. His brush with death led him to embark on a 20-year quest, studying how love, life, and relationships work, and so the next time he faced death, he could look back on a deep, rich, and meaningful life. Today, Tony blends science, languages, psychology, and culture to provide expert advice and guidance in matters of the heart, mind, and soul. And he's the author of a book on relationships called From Struggling to Cuddling, 5 Steps to Your Best Relationship Ever, which will be released this year. So thank you again, Tony, for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Shana. I'm lovely, really delighted to be here.
Good. All right, let's talk about honest sex. So first of all, I'd love to hear something personal from you, and I'm happy to share too, so you don't have to feel like you're alone in this and you're, bearing your soul. But I'd love to hear something a little bit personal about when you had a wake up call around honesty and sex, right? Like, what shifted for you? Was there a time when you weren't very honest and something bad happened, or a time when you were super honest and you realized, oh, this creates more intimacy? Do you have a memory or a moment you can share to start us off?
Yeah, actually, I have quite a few. I've had both experiences whereby I was honest with sex and in a sexual encounter with my lover at the time, and it didn't go as well as I planned because there involved some certain disclosures about needs and wants which weren't received in the way I wanted them to be received. So
you shared,
I remember that. Yeah,
you were
exactly.
honest.
Exactly.
And
that was negative because a judgment came up. And then I've also experienced the opposite side whereby I wasn't being, fully transparent, fully giving of myself as I could be. And I interpreted that as, not going fully vulnerable at 100%.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that's a certain level of dishonesty, or at least it's not as fully honest as one can be. And therefore that actually changed the flavor of the whole interaction. So,
how so?
I've also had it the other way.
How did it change the flavor when you weren't honest or vulnerable? What happened then?
because afterwards I realized that if I was more honest and more open, the interaction could have been so much more deeper
Yeah.
and more meaningful. So there was a little bit of regret afterwards.
Yeah. I love two things I love that you just brought up. One is vulnerability and the other is meaningful, right? And I know in my sexual experiences, the times where I've been the most vulnerable, right, which may mean I'm crying or I'm expressing frustration or a longing or, right, it's those moments that are messier than the rest. It's not just like the typical, oh, we're just expressing passion here. It's like the soul comes through and we're meeting in this really deep way and it's vulnerable, like you said. Like, so the honesty often feels really vulnerable. And those are some of the most meaningful sexual experiences I've ever had because our hearts and souls have connected. It's not just about passion and play. It's about healing and growth and union and intimacy, and all of that gets, stirred into the pot.
Absolutely. It's all about fusion. It's about meeting yourself in the eyes and hopefully in the body and the heart and the soul of your partner, and also be met at the same time. And if you can get there, if you can, a lot of people get there by accident.
Yes.
There's always the hope, there's always this desire, there's always this anticipation that you can actually have that kind of connection whereby you're connected at heart, mind, body, and soul and spirit.
Yeah.
And you kind of melt and you kind of fuse with one another. But of course, you can't actually predict what's going to happen until it actually happens.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about that because you just said a lot of people fall into it by accident. I want to talk about how we don't have to have an accident or wait and hope that it's going to happen, but that we actually make it happen.
That's so interesting and that's so juicy. And I believe that takes a little bit of, a lot of self-awareness. And I believe that the genesis of that, where it all starts within us. If we can be honest with ourselves about what we really want, what we really desire, what we're hoping for, what our expectations are, and, really represent that to ourselves in a way that we can then take that knowledge and that description and those are hopes, dreams, and desires and actually communicate that to our partners.
Yeah.
That sets the foundation for a fantastic encounter.
Yes. That's so
beautiful.
Whether they are
sexual or not, but I think that when you bring that level of honesty that you have with yourself, when you can share that with somebody else and be received, and you can actually be open enough for them to actually share where they're coming from, their hopes, their desires, their anticipation, their wants, their longings, and they can share that with you, then sex on the physical plane becomes something multidimensional. And it's not just about the physical interaction, what you're doing with one another. It's about the shared journey and a shared experience that you can look back on afterwards. And it can actually, be a memory that's a living memory.
Yeah. Okay. So many things you just said that I want to double click on. One, being honest with ourselves, right? In a way, that's not always easy. I mean, a lot of the men and women I work with, that's one of the main things we work on is beyond the expectations and the shoulds and the cultural dynamics and the family dynamics, like, what do you actually want? When you're not considering, oh, this is the box I have to, I have to be monogamous, I have to be married, I have to have kids, I have to this, right? What do you actually want? And then to be vulnerable enough that you communicate it with another person, right? I mean, that can be really scary. And one of the things I think you mentioned that allows for more safety is an agreement between two people of, I want to know what you want. I want to share what I want. I want us to have a safe and non-judgmental space, right? We may not want the same things. We may not want to do the same things sexually, but can we at least stay open to what each other wants? Can we support each other to find a way to make those things happen? Because sometimes when we have fantasies, they're not exactly about like, oh, I need it to look specifically in exactly that way. There's this deeper underlying piece, right? Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to be dominated, some people want that because, oh, I want to surrender and relax. Other people want that because they want to feel right and good enough. We could go on forever. So there's something about having a partnership in which you can bring these honest desires and receive somebody's honest desires and in a non-judgmental way for yourself and other, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think a lot of it actually has to do with your intentions. Sexuality and honesty, it can be a pretty explosive mix, but I think one thing that can diffuse that sense of tension and that sense of discomfort around this topic, around the combination of these two topics, is the intention that we hold for a lover. If we have benevolent, positive intentions that, hey, we're going to spend this time together. I want to make it an experience for you, which gives you what you want. I want it to be a shared journey, which is enjoyable for both of us at the same time. Maybe we want to go to the same destination, but the route that we take there, the way that we get to that destination is different. So maybe in my sexual expression, I want to go this way, and in your sexual expression, you want to go in another way.
Yeah.
But the fact that maybe our sexual expressions and desires are different, not identical, doesn't mean that one is better than the other. Doesn't mean a moralistic judgment of the other.
Yeah.
And even when our partners may mention something about which we consider to be a taboo or which we are judgmental about, it's an opportunity for you to sit back and reflect.
Yeah.
What are you judging about? It's an opportunity for you to really discover deeper meanings about yourself and what you think. And you can be open-minded enough to let your horizons expand. It's also an opportunity for you to actually express your boundaries. This is why I think it's really important for you to think as an individual what you want first, what you're hoping to get out of that, because then you can determine what's a yes, what's a no, what are the gray areas which may be a maybe. And then if you actually come to the conversation with those in mind and be open to receive your partner's yes, your partner's no, your partner's maybe, I'm sure that, two lovers can actually find a way that works for both of them at the same time and have a really good time.
Have a really good time, right? And there's a beauty of learning how to communicate in such a way where, how do I put this? It's like when I imagine two people coming together and sharing, right? And then there's these gray zones and there's a yes and a no. The willingness to hold our yes and no and gray zone seriously for ourselves, to honor ourselves, but also lightly enough that we can explore that and really look at, well, if I have a no to something, why do I have a no? It doesn't mean I have to dishonor myself by suddenly saying yes when I really think I'm a no, but to really be willing, right? To go in there and be like, what is this no about? And how could I meet my partner part way? Or is there some small step we could take to explore this? Because if the no is, well, I don't feel safe, or I don't feel understood, or I don't, okay, what's a small step that could take us closer to each other rather than an immediate shutting down of, I'm holding my no so seriously and so, tightly. And I'm using no as an example, which could be a little edgy for people, right? Because yes, no means no. And I think when we can hold it in ourselves with some curiosity and hold even our partners no with curiosity, because the other dynamic I see when people are talking about their desires, if one person has a no, the person with the desire can often be like, well, that's fucked. And,
Yeah, it's judgmental. That they're judged. That we all really fear being judged, especially when we're in a vulnerable, a sexually charged position and we're vulnerable and with
actually
somebody that. Exactly. And so it can be a great opportunity, your boundaries, because even if you do express a no, it's an opportunity for you to express, to go deeper and say why. Because different things mean different things for different people. So my no to a certain act or to a certain position, or maybe we're in an environment whereby, let's say, my lover wants us to have a little sexual encounter in an environment which I feel uncomfortable. So I may say no. And the no may not be that I'm rejecting her. The no may just be that in this environment, I just cannot get stimulated. I don't think about I'm not safe, or I think about the other things which are on my mind, which means I can't focus all of my erotic energy, all of my attention on you because I'm busy worried about, what's going to happen. So if I provide more information than just saying a blanket no and say this is the reason why, two things happen from that. First of all, I've affirmed myself, I've honored myself by speaking my truth. Second, I've shared information about why, which increases the intimacy, that I've created with my partner, because I've disclosed something about what I think and what I feel that maybe she didn't know about.
Yeah.
And I've actually given her some information that she can use and reflect back to me in a positive way. So even though a no may be seen as an obstacle or a block to stop people going in a certain direction, it could open up different avenues in your relationship, which are much more intimate.
Yeah. I love that. Right. And that, right, when we hold a no in a softer way, again, not saying I have to cross my own boundaries or do anything I don't want to do, but when we can inquire into it together, it creates the intimacy. So even if it never happens, there's an experiment or maybe more of an exploration, right, of what is this for you and what is this for you? And we get to those deeper parts of each other that we wouldn't have gotten to if we weren't willing to risk asking or saying what we want or need in the first place.
Exactly. And that's the whole beauty about the vulnerability that we have in a sexual encounter when we bring honesty also to the table or into the bed or wherever you are. The thing is, I think sex kind of amplifies all of our emotions, and we become naked, not just physically, we become naked. Our soul kind of becomes naked and our heart becomes naked. And sex also awakens a certain childhood part in us, a part of us which may not be at the same biological age that we are in. You know, the kind of magical child that really wants to play, wants to discover, wants to perform, wants to show off, wants to try out things. And all of these are little entry points that you can go into sexuality. And sometimes it can be so overwhelming that even though we want to be open, we get shut down. If we can express at this moment that, hey, you know, I'm open towards you and I really want this to happen, but at the same time, I feel unsafe. And you received, that is magic. That is magic.
It's so magic. It's magic. And I'm just thinking as you're talking about the child part, right? It's so easy in sex to feel rejected. You know, I want to have sex right now and you don't, or I want to do something and you don't. And we can take it as a personal rejection, like, oh, I must not be attractive, or I'm not this, or my partner is not ever going to want to be with me again. And that is that young child part. So I love that we're bringing that in, because I think part of what we're talking about with honest sex is also looking at which part of me is responding right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I responding as an adult, or am I responding as my child? And how do I help that child grow up, which I think is a really beautiful part of honest sex, which is the healing and the evolving each other.
Yeah. And, you know, we can get into so many different angles with this, because sometimes we have adult parts, we have child parts in us. And if one partner is in the adult and the other part is in the child, that creates kind of differential, it creates kind of imbalance in the dynamic between the two of you. Now, if that imbalance is what you want, i.e., if my little boy, let's say you're in the adult woman and I'm in my little boy, and my little boy says, ooh, you know, I want, you know,
consciously choosing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want to be nurtured. I want to be, you know, basically, I don't want to take responsibility. I just want to be a little boy and muck around and run around. And I don't want to, you know, have any responsible adult behavior here. And you, my lover, you're going to hold that space for me. That's one thing, whereby both of us are on the same page. And there's an understanding that this is what is happening. I think we get onto tricky ground whereby two different parts can meet and both are at cross purposes. And that's where communication, I believe that, I mean, under sexuality, for me, I have this 5 partnership principles, which I allude to in my book. And the foundation of that is communication. And then on top of that, you have honesty. So I believe that you cannot have honesty without having the lines of communication being open. Yeah, and in my world, actually, sexuality is built on top of communication and honesty.
I love it. So the first communication, just the lines of communication have to be open. They have to be going back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There must be extra.
You distinguish honesty.
Correct.
And then on top of that, that's where you can actually then start to bring your body and have the sexual, spiritual, soulful encounters.
Yeah. Because with communication and honesty, then you actually have the building blocks of actually being able to open this channel of sexual or erotic energy to flow between the two of you in a clean way. What I see a lot of is that you have people who have communication, then they skip honesty and they take a pole vault into sex.
Interesting.
So it's like, young people or older people, human beings, they go out, you meet somebody, you look at them, sparks start to fly, boy meets girl across the room, they start talking, and before you know it, they're in bed with one another, but they don't really know each other. They're coming at it with hidden agendas, which maybe, they're scared of actually communicating. And yes, they may have an explosive encounter, but usually those are the types of encounters where you have like buyer's remorse at the end, where there's regret at the end, whereby you wake up in the morning and maybe not
what did I just do
on the outside, but on the inside you feel like I feel icky and I shouldn't have done that, and maybe I should have communicated more about what I wanted, what this was meaning to me. There's so many areas.
Because I think for me, I'm realizing that I don't have communication and honesty as separate. But no, I'm not saying that you should. This is good. This is a good distinction, right? It's like, for me, if we're actually really communicating, we're being honest. But what I think you're pointing out is people can communicate in ways that are way less than honest, and often do. And so there is a distinction of, okay, if we're communicating, we're not being honest, we're jumping into bed, then we're missing this whole layer. And that is, and is often where I think these issues and downward spirals happen, right? Like, I didn't ask you whether sex for you means this is a night of passion, or whether it leads into relationship. Or
that's very, very good distinction.
I wasn't honest with you that I have had women and men come to me and say, people have taken advantage of me, and it's often in different ways. Sometimes it's sexually, sometimes it's emotionally. And I often say, unless it's a very extreme situation, I don't believe we can be taken advantage of. And again, this is a tricky one, because I don't want to say rape doesn't exist, or like those things can happen. So point blank, right? I'm stating that. And in the realm of most of our everyday experiences, if we don't get honest and say, you know what, before I have sex with you, I need to know this. Or before I have a kind of intimacy with you, I need to be sure we're on the same page here. Then that's where we have to take responsibility, right? For getting our needs met.
Yeah, and for clear, exactly. And you see, sex means different things to different people. It's a 3-letter word, but for some people, sex means honesty. For some other people, sex means connection, but not love. For some people, sex means marriage.
Yeah.
For some people, sex means procreation. For some other people, sex means it's an expression of my power. For some people, sex is an expression of my desire. And so 2 people may actually have the common goal of having sex with one another, but what they mean and what they hope to get out of it can be completely different. And the fact that they're communicating, they may be talking to one another, they may be speaking, one person's speaking, the other person's listening, they may even repeat each other's word back to each other verbatim. That doesn't mean that you're being honest. Right. You've got the prerequisite.
Honest. And it doesn't mean that you understand each other either.
Neither. It doesn't mean that either, because I know many, many couples who've been married for years, who talk every single day, and are dishonest with one another because they withhold information for each other. They allow each other to have mistaken conclusions without correcting it. They give false impressions. So for me, I really make a distinction between communicating and being honest, because I don't think that one automatically leads to another.
I love it.
And there's nothing more painful than being in a partnership or in a relationship with someone whereby you think that communication automatically implies honesty and your partner doesn't, and you don't know it.
Woo! this is where it gets hot. And you said something before about honesty being kind of explosive with sex. And I think in a way, right, most of us are, I don't want to make an assumption, but I think a lot of people I talk to are looking for sex that's, if it's not explosive, right, it's passionate, but
doesn't mean,
right? And I think honesty is actually a way to have more drama-free explosiveness and passion versus, I think sometimes when we're not being honest, we can use drama as a way to feel like, well, this is explosive and this is deep.
That's a cheap substitute.
It's a cheap substitute. And it's so much more vulnerable and risky to be honest. But when we can start to open and really be more honest is when I think we get the true, right? It's not the substitute anymore. It's that true soul shaking, earth shaking, connection and intimacy that is mind blowing in ways that I think a lot of people never experience in this lifetime.
Yeah, that's true. I think that the lack of honesty kind of makes people have inauthentic interactions. And on a physical level, your body may have an explosive experience with your sexual partner. But on an emotional level, you can be completely empty.
Yeah.
You can be completely devoid. You can be completely lost. You can be completely disappointed. And I think that's very, very confusing for people when they say, wow, I've got this massive, it's fireworks and it's fiery. There's so many sparks that fly. But yet, I've got this hole in my heart.
Yes.
And yet, if I see my pet dog or my pet cat, my heart suddenly swells full of love, but I can't reach, this man or this woman with whom I shared a bed with, maybe with whom I've had children with, maybe with whom I've been with for years and years. I can't get there with this person, despite the explosive physical sex that they have, but the emotional connection isn't there, and the feeling of really sharing yourself.
Really sharing and really being received and really being
received
at the
and being really
time.
Witnessed in your full glory. I mean, sex can offer you so many juicy things in your life, not just on a physical plane, but on an emotional, on a spiritual plane.
Yes.
And people who don't have that, even if they haven't experienced it, they know instinctively that they're missing something.
Yeah, right. There's that feeling, and sometimes it's just like a little niggle, and sometimes it's deep dissatisfaction. Anguish, right? Like, why doesn't life feel meaningful anymore? Everything on paper looks right. I have the partner, I have the job, I have the this, and yet something in my heart and soul is telling me I'm missing something.
Yeah. And one really paradoxical thing is that some people find it easier to be honest with strangers, with people who are like 3 degrees removed from them.
Yeah.
Some people find it much easier to be honest with a work colleague than they find it to be honest with their partner with whom they've been married to or living with for 10 years or 15 years and have children with.
Well, and you and I have discussed this.
So sad. Yeah. That's so sad. That's such a really, really sad state of affairs. And
yet it makes sense, because if we're honest with someone who we don't actually live with or partner with, who doesn't see us fully and completely, right? The fear of being rejected by that person who's closest to you
goes down. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, I think one of the beautiful things that relationships offer us, they offer you a chance to see that you're not as flawed as you may believe that you are. And by you showing your full vulnerability to your partner, hopefully, I really hope so, that your partner is open enough to actually receive the good, the bad, and the indifferent, and the ugly about you, and to accept you as a whole human being, knowing that we're not robots. Human beings aren't linear. We change moment by moment. We change according to circumstances, according to how we feel, according to the context. And to have another human being witness you when you're going through all of the shades, all of the colors of the spectrum, that is really a beautiful thing, because that makes your life worth sharing.
Oh my gosh. And so healing. I think that's one of my favorite parts about honest sex. I don't know if I can say my favorite. One thing that's standing out to me as something I really love is the healing that's happened, where I've gotten to be sexually with, a man who has felt young in a moment and didn't want to, but I got to love him there. Or, just those moments of getting to meet someone, which takes something, right? It takes, you and I have done a lot of work on ourselves to be able to hold someone else's pain and struggle and love them there, and not think, a lot of, I think where things get challenging is when we have a sexual partner who expresses some of that fear or some of those young parts, and then we can solidify them as like, oh, well, I guess that's who they are.
Exactly.
And have the fear of like, well, now I'm never going to be met again, or now I'm never going to be seen again, or now I'm never going to be held and supported again. But I think the maturing of our ability to say, oh, I can love you there. and I actually see the fullness of you, not just this
Mm.
part of you, gets to heal so much in ourselves and our partners.
Absolutely. I believe that people we're like diamonds. We're like diamonds with 1,000 faces.
Yeah.
And depending on which side you look at a diamond, some parts are bright, some parts are sparkly, some parts seem cold and dark. But if you turn the diamond around, a different face now enters into the sunshine and becomes bright and sparkly.
Mm.
And we humans, I think that we're a collection of many, many different parts, many different sub-personalities. And different parts of us come out to play and are in control at different times. And when you find a really, really good lover who's a really, really good match for you, it's somebody who can actually hold space for all these different parts, even the parts that they don't like, and even the parts that they don't appreciate.
Yeah.
Honesty is a little bit tricky because sometimes we have to express not only what we like and what we want. The other side of honesty is expressing what we don't like and what we don't want.
Yeah.
And to be able to have the vulnerability and the confidence to say to your lover or to your partner that, look, I'm not happy with you, or I'm upset about this, or you violated my boundary. In these set of circumstances, I didn't like it, and I still love you, and I still respect you, and I still see all the other parts of you which are positive. But I do want to point out that this particular aspect, was something that didn't sit well with me. And so I want to have a conversation with you about it to see how we can both look for a solution whereby it doesn't happen again.
Yes.
That's gold.
A powerful conversation.
That's what I'm really working about. And that's what I really call honesty. I think honesty has to be seen not just to express pleasure and joy, but also to express pain
and struggle.
Without that triggering or without that being used as a weapon or because people can use truth as a weapon.
Yeah.
I've seen interactions where, somebody was being really, really honest with their partner, but the way that they said it, the tone with which they said it was like a hammer.
It's really different to use honesty as like, this is how you are and this is what you do, versus I felt unseen, or I felt, and to be able to take responsibility to say, this is what happened for me, and to get curious, even in the midst of pain. I want to know what happened for you because it didn't work for me, right? And I've often wanted to write a book called Same Team Marriage or something like that, because it's like, oh, if we could actually be on the same team in this conversation versus we're on opposite teams.
Opposite side,
right? How can we sit in this together and both get what we need and want here?
How can we both sit on the same side of the table and be looking out and seeing exactly the same thing? Because what I write about this in my book also is about the intentions that you hold. If the intention that you hold for the relationship with your partner is a positive, benevolent, win-win one, even in the moments when you're upset, even in the moments when your partner slips up and you express that, you know that they slipped up because they slipped up. A lot of people misinterpret a partner's mistake or infraction as being an insult, a personal attack. And then they start
on purpose. You did that.
Exactly. You always do that. You know that I'm mad. I've told you 3,000 times that I don't like, the toothpaste cap, not being screwed onto the toothpaste. And every morning I come into the bathroom, you do this. Therefore, you're not listening to me. Therefore, you disrespect me. Therefore. And it's these extrapolations that we can sometimes make, usually from a childhood place, actually. Usually that's a
child. We're talking about the toothpaste. It's usually from a childhood place.
Yeah, usually it's really, usually your partner can bring out the best in you, but your partner also has the ability, unknowingly, unwittingly, to also trigger, parts of you that really, how could I say, flood your nervous system. And if you hold that and work with that, that's where honesty can really be a massive advantage.
I love that, right? To actually
be able to sit down and say that I'm really upset with you right now, but I'm feeling vulnerable and I'm feeling uncomfortable by bringing this up, but I think it needs to be brought up. Can you please listen to me?
Right. Can you please listen to me? And can we be in this together for a moment? And can you suspend judgments? Some love and compassion for me. I love it.
And that kind of honesty leads to hot sex.
It does. It does, right? I mean, that kind of honesty, when it's like raw hearted, when you get through and you're actually seen and seeing each other, right, then the intimacy just flows. So this has been a really beautiful and deep and rich conversation, and I'm so happy to have it with you, and I want to keep going. And for now, as we're winding down this episode, I'm curious, what's one thing you want to leave people with? What's one thing you want them to know about our topic of honest sex?
I think I'd like to invite your listeners to actually think about this. What does sex mean to you? Really think about that. What are you looking for? And what are you hoping to get? And what are you hoping to give? And if you can think about that, answer that for yourself and find a way to communicate that to your partner or start a conversation about that. I think that will lead to really interesting interactions.
Oh, very interesting and very deep, right? It's like one of those things that we just engage in sex as though it's just a thing we do. We learned that, right? And to actually look at, well, what am I trying to get here? And what do I love that you brought the give piece too? What do I want to give here? What do I want to offer? Because, I know in some of my experiences, one of the ways I can feel most loving is to give. Sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's sexual, but to give that intimacy, to give that love, and to meet someone's needs or desires is a form of love. So I love that you brought in both. What do I want to receive here and what do I want to give?
Yeah. I think it's worth reflecting on and then starting a conversation with those two elements in it. And I think that, you'll have an interesting time. Do write back and tell Shayna what you think.
Yeah, tell us both. And where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. My website is www.tonyfonderson.com. And if you go to Facebook, it's just facebook.com/Tony Fonderson, all in one word. Yeah. So I'm on my Facebook page. So I'd love to see you there. Come by and visit and drop me a line.
Thank you for being here today.
Thanks a million, Shayna. This is fantastic. Love being here.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.